thank you everyone for being here and for joining us. I do want to note before we get started that this session is going to be it is being recorded, and it's going to be made available publicly on our YouTube channel within the next couple of weeks. So if you want to review it, please know that you can in a couple of weeks. I know many of the folks here that are already here and folks that are still trickling in, but I'll go ahead and introduce myself just in case we haven't met. I'm Bailey Sterling, NNLM Region 3 Student Engagement and Marketing Strategist. And I'm really excited to introduce you to this year's NNLM Region 3 interns as they share their experiences that they've had over the last few months. In addition to our interns, supportive staff from NNLM Region 3, from Lewis Library, and of course from AgriSafe, we want to thank Dan Burgard, University Librarian and Vice Provost for Scholarly Information Management. He is the Director and PI of NNLM Region 3. Brian Leaf, Executive Director of NNLM Region 3, and Natalie Roy, CEO of the AgriSafe Network. And I want to pause and give a special thanks to Natalie. Natalie gives continued support and collaboration with our office to offer these really, unique internships. This is the second year we've worked with AgriSafe on internships, and I think they've both been really fruitful collaborations. So thank you, Natalie, for that. And then, of course, we want to acknowledge the wonderful folks who serve as the intern site supervisors and coordinators. These folks oversee and collaborate on the important work that the students have done this semester. So those folks are Nisha Rose Davison, the Public Health and Equity Director at AgriSafe, and Katie Pierce-Ferrier, Data Science Strategist at NNLM Region 3. And then lastly, I want to recognize 2 university faculty who served as academic advisors to these wonderful students. We have Dr. Denise Adkins, Associate Director and Professor in the School of Information Science and Learning Technologies at the University of Missouri. And of course, Dr. Anna Cleveland, Sarah Law Kennerly Endowed Professor and Director of the Health Informatics Program at UNT. We're always so grateful to work with you and with your students. And without you and the rest of the fantastic folks that I have just mentioned, our internships simply would not be possible. So thank you all so much for your support over the last several months and of course, year over year. So let's start off with a little intro to NNLM and the work that we do. The Network of the National Library of Medicine, or NNLM, is the outreach arm of the National Library of Medicine. We work with organizations and communities throughout the country to improve public health and health literacy and to support progress in the field of medicine. If you look at this map here on the bottom right of this slide, you can see that NNLM is divided into 7 regions, and Region 3's office, which is located at the University of North Texas Health Science Center in Fort Worth, Texas, is kind of the headquarters for Region 3, and you can see Region 3 here shaded green on the map. Region 3 includes the states of Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. Some of our outreach efforts, of course, which is why you're all here today, some of our outreach efforts focus specifically on preparing the next generation of medical librarians for their future roles. And of course, we get to learn from them in return. So it's always such a pleasure. I could talk all day about the amazing work that early librarians are doing, but today let's focus on internships. So today we'll be seeing the NNLM Region 3 2024 Spring Internship final presentations of Beth Lee from the University of Missouri and Nikitha Marapaka from the University of North Texas. Beth will be sharing with us some of the work she's done with AgriSafe, with whom we collaborated on her internship experience. And Nikitha will be discussing her work on a pilot course about NLM's Scrubber tool. So 2 very different, very interesting presentations in front of us today. Beth and Nikitha have been working diligently all semester to complete their robust projects. Their substantial efforts have opened doors for future NNLM Region 3 outreach efforts, and they've allowed us to assess new avenues that we can take to connect with all the varied populations in our region. In addition to their professional and academic responsibilities, they've consistently met with Region 3 and AgriSafe staff to carry out their internship duties. Their presentations today fulfill their final obligations to our internship program. These presentations will be immediately followed by Q&A. So each session will have a Q&A afterward, and then there will be a Q&A at the end if you forgot to ask somebody something. So please feel free to type all your questions into the chat. Up first, we have Beth. Beth Lee spent the first 18 years of her life in a suburb of Oklahoma City. Her childhood was filled with many trips to her grandparents' farm in beautiful southeastern Oklahoma, where her grandparents raised 6 children while also tending to a herd of cattle and various small crops. Visits to the farm taught her a deep appreciation for the hard work and tenacity that agricultural work requires. She and her husband have lived in a suburb of Kansas City for over 20 years, where she worked as a speech-language pathologist and raised her daughter. After deciding to change career paths, she's back in school to obtain her master's in library science from the University of Missouri. And now I'm going to hand things over to Beth. So take it away.
Okay, thank you, Bailey. Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here. As Bailey said, my name is Beth Lee, and I will be talking to you today about the accessibility of AgriSafe web pages. Next slide, please. Bailey covered most of this just now, so I won't repeat everything that she said, but I will add that time really truly does fly because my daughter is graduating from college next month. It's been interesting to be a student at the same time as her, and I could swear that she was 5 years old just 2 weeks ago, so time really does fly. And also I'll add that I currently work as a para in a middle school library while I'm pursuing my master's in library and information science. Next slide. I have a few people I would like to thank before we dive in. First is Angela Landrum, who was my internship supervisor. Angela was the librarian at AgriSafe Network until very recently, and Angela just was so generous with her time and her resources and her knowledge. She was so patient, answering all of my many, many questions. So it was really a joy to learn and work with Angela. Next is Bailey Sterling with NNLM Region 3. Bailey gave me such a warm welcome to the program that I immediately felt at ease, and she's also just given some really great guidance along the way. And last but definitely not least is Dr. Denise Adkins, my academic advisor at the University of Missouri. And I owe Dr. Adkins thank you for encouraging me to apply to this internship. And then, of course, I would like to thank NNLM Region 3 as well as AgriSafe Network for this really great opportunity. Next slide. So during today's presentation, I'll start with a brief introduction, and then I will show you a list of some of the accessibility tools that I found really helpful. I'll introduce you to a farmer named Bill. I'll show you some ways to improve accessibility, and then I'll talk about a couple of challenges I ran into before wrapping up the presentation and answering questions. Next slide. So the AgriSafe Network is a nonprofit organization that connects people in the agricultural community with health and safety information, primarily through webinars, blogs, and articles on their website. And one of the roles that I took on during my internship was to assess some of their PDFs and web pages to ensure that they were meeting AgriSafe's accessibility standards and guidelines. And what I mean in this context when I talk about accessibility is that I was making sure that people with a visual impairment or blindness could easily access the same information that people without a visual impairment or blindness could access. And as far as why we should care, well, I learned that there are over 8 million people in the United States with a significant visual impairment or blindness. And I come from a library perspective, and the very first principle of the American Library Association's Code of Ethics states that libraries must provide equitable access to all patrons, and that certainly includes access to digital information. And lastly, in some instances, it's actually a legal requirement that a website be accessible. Next slide. So I won't cover all of the aspects that I evaluated during my internship. Instead, I'm going to focus on these four because I really spent the bulk of my time on these four. And I also think improving these four areas can make a really big impact. And those are the use of alt text for images, formatting headings properly, creating text equivalents for visually busy PDFs, and then considering color aspects. Next slide. So this is a list of the accessibility tools that I found really helpful. I do have links to these at the end of the presentation, and then Bailey will also be sharing a link for you in the chat box a little bit later. All of these tools are free. I found them all really easy to use. And I will start by pointing out the checklist that is on the slide. I cannot stress enough the importance of using a checklist because I think it forces you to consider elements you might not otherwise think about. This checklist was designed primarily for PDFs, and I started using it for the PDFs, but I found it so user-friendly that I ended up using it on the web pages as well. And I'll show you a picture of that on the next slide. And then I wanted to put the Wave browser extension on this slide, although I won't show it to you because I feel like that could be its own presentation. But if you're not already using the Wave browser extension, it's really easy to use. And it just gives all kinds of valuable information about the accessibility or not of the elements on your web page. And then I'll show you those color analyzers a bit later. And finally, I do want to point out that WCAG is the group that writes the accessibility standards for the rest of us. So that is a really great place to start if you have questions about accessibility. And then I used the WordPress accessibility tutorial because AgriSafe uses WordPress to create their website. And I looked all over WordPress for a built-in accessibility checker like you can find on Word and PowerPoint, and I could not find it anywhere. I think it's probably an extra plugin. So that's when I reached out to their website and found a really great tutorial on their website. Next slide. So this is that checklist I was telling you about. You can see that it's pass, fail, and not applicable. And one of the things I also really liked about this, besides its user friendliness, if you will, is that blank section at the bottom of page 3, because it allows you to elaborate on any elements that failed. So you can go back later and try to fix them. Next slide. So I want you to imagine that this is a farmer named Bill. And as you can see, Bill uses a white cane because he is legally blind. He also uses a screen reader to access digital information. And in the last few years, let's imagine that Bill has had a couple of issues pop up in his life. The first issue is that he started wondering if he might have a drinking problem. So he turned to AgriSafe to learn more about alcohol use. The second issue that popped up was a pretty severe wildfire that burned near his farm for over a week. So he again turned to AgriSafe, this time to learn about how to keep himself and his family safe from wildfire smoke. So we're going to take a look and see what it's like for Bill to navigate the AgriSafe website and how we can improve his access. Next slide. When Bill or anyone uses a screen reader, the screen reader cannot see and describe images to the user of the screen reader. Instead, the screen reader relies on what's called alt text, short for alternative text. And usually, alt text needs to be created by the person creating the page or the document. I encountered these 4 main types of images on the AgriSafe website. There are more types than this, but these are the ones that I primarily encountered. And I will go into those in a little bit more depth on the next few slides. Next slide. So when Bill hops on the AgriSafe webpage, he starts on the website rather, he starts on the home page. And you can see those green buttons at the bottom that start with Learn Now, Start Training, and Join Now. Those are what are called functional images. Anything that acts as a link, so a hyperlink, a button like that, or an icon, those are considered functional images. And the rule of thumb for functional images is that you want them to be descriptive enough that a user has a pretty good idea of where they'll go on the website if they click on the button or the link. So in this case, Bill hops on and he doesn't want to hear all of the extra text that's on the website. Similar to the way that a person without a visual impairment might visually scan a page until they see the link or the information they need. He doesn't want to hear all the extra stuff. So he asks his screen reader to just read him the links on the page. So when the screen reader gets to those buttons, what he'll hear is link, learn now, link, start training, link, join now. And I felt like those weren't quite descriptive enough. They're better than click here. You should definitely never have a link that just says click here. But I thought they could even be a little bit more descriptive. So I'm going to pause for 15 seconds, and I would like you guys to see if you can come up with a better description for that very first button that says Learn Now. And you can just toss your answers in the chat box. Okay, great. Next slide. Yeah, so there's not really one right answer. You guys were all, I think, on the same page as me for the most part. You can see what I did. I changed Learn Now to health topics. I changed Start Training to learning opportunities, and I changed Join Now to Join AgriSafe. So they're still really succinct. But I feel like Bill's going to have a much better idea of where the links will take him. Next slide. Okay, this next type of image is a decorative image, and these I felt like could be a little bit of a gray area. I found this a little bit of a challenge when I was working on the AgriSafe website. Sometimes it's hard to know if it's a decorative image or an informative image, which I'll get to next. And by the way, the scenario on this slide and the next slide are made-up scenarios, and the image does not appear on AgriSafe's website, though they do have information about alcohol use. So in this scenario, let's just say that Bill came across this article about drinking and driving. And whoever created the article just threw that picture of the wine glass onto the page to add a little bit of decoration. It doesn't add any actual information beyond the article. And you can see that in the WordPress alt text box, the instructions are to just leave the box empty if it's a decorative image. So that is what I did. I decided that in this context, that is a decorative image. Next slide. But here's the exact same image. And in this scenario, I considered it an informative image. So context is really everything with these images. So in this scenario, this was an article about the different amounts of alcohol that are in various drinks. I think we've probably all encountered those. Something that says this 5-ounce glass of red wine has the same amount of alcohol as this 12-ounce can of beer. So in this instance, the image actually does add information to the article. And so I did include the alt text. Next slide. And then Bill is unlikely to encounter this image, but I did want to include it for a couple of reasons. Number one, AgriSafe has quite a few badges like this and logos. And then I also just wanted to talk about images of text because in general, it's best to steer clear of images with text, especially if there's a lot of text, because the alt text becomes really lengthy. But the two exceptions are when it's something like this, which is a badge or a logo, in which case you should really transcribe the text exactly as it is in the image. Next slide. Okay, so going back to those particular elements on our handy checklist, we can mark pass for all of those elements. Yay. Okay, next slide. So the next area I'll talk about is the use of headings. I think we're probably all familiar with using headings in our APA style or MLA style papers over the years. And generally in those kinds of papers, we tend to bold the text and or indent it. But Bill's screen reader does not pick up bold or indented text. It will just read that as regular text. So in order for the screen reader to realize that it's a heading, it needs to be formatted within whatever program you're using. Some of you may be familiar with the styles section in Word, and that's what I'm talking about. And I'll give you an example in the next couple of slides. Next slide. Okay, so this is an actual PDF that is on AgriSafe's website, and I think it's fantastic. It's visually very appealing, but you can understand that that would be a lot of alt text. So I decided in consultation with Angela to create text equivalents to these, to any of the PDFs that seemed pretty visually busy like this. And I'll show you in a second what that looks like. But as far as headings go, I felt like the obvious headings were those risk factors across the top. And then the subheadings underneath that are the prevention tips and the fact sheets. And I'll show you what I mean. Next slide, please. So this is a view from the WordPress side of the website. And you can see over on the left, I brought up the outline view, which is really, really handy because I can immediately see that I have one title, and a title is considered a heading 1. You should only have one heading 1. So you can see that I just have one heading 1, and then each of the risk factors are at a heading 2 level, and then the prevention tips and the fact sheets are all nested under the heading 2, and they are heading 3s. So next slide. This is what Bill would encounter when he hops on to find out about keeping his family safe from wildfire smoke. So what's really important about headings is if Bill doesn't want to hear about respiratory distress, he can skip from that heading to the next heading, heat illnesses, without having to listen to his screen reader reading all the text that's underneath the respiratory distress. So it just allows the user of the screen reader to more quickly get to the information that they need. Next slide. So again, we can mark pass on our checklist because our headings are properly formatted. Next slide. So the last big area that I'll talk about is the use of color. The two big considerations when you're using color is you want to make sure that color is not the only way that you're conveying information. And you also want to check your color contrast. And I'll show you what I mean, and I'll also show you those tools that I have listed in the next slide. So next slide, please. So again, I'm going to pause for about 15 seconds, and keeping in mind that you should not just use color to convey information. Shoot your answers in the chat box and let me know what you see. Words, yes, green headings and lots of text. Okay, yes, next slide. So I wasn't so concerned with the green headings because they are only headings and I know that they are formatted properly, so I know that a screen reader is going to pick them up. What I was concerned with was the fact that the links are not underlined. And I bet I looked at this page, the one on the left, it was like that on the website. I bet I looked at it at least a dozen times and never noticed that the links weren't underlined. So you can imagine that someone with a visual impairment or someone who had difficulty seeing color could not easily see that that there were links embedded in the text. And interestingly, for some reason, WordPress, the version that AgriSafe uses, doesn't automatically underline the links. It does automatically turn them green, but it doesn't automatically underline them. And so I ended up going back into the pages that I worked on and manually underlining them, because when text is underlined these days, it's kind of a universal symbol to everyone that it is most likely a link. So you can see that underlining it takes care of the problem of it just being green. Next slide. And then the next area when you're considering color is to look at your color contrast. You can imagine how those first two lines could be difficult for somebody who either has, low vision or difficulty seeing color. It could be really difficult for someone to read those top two lines. Next slide. So one way to check that, I used this really, really easy, it's called Image Color Picker. You don't download it, it's just a website. And what I did was I took a screenshot of the page I was interested in assessing, and then you just upload it to Image Color Picker. And it's like your picture is immediately there, and then you move the mouse until your cursor is over the color that you're interested in evaluating. Click it, and those color values that you see on the right populate the boxes, and you copy the hex value, and next slide. You drop it into this WebAIM color contrast checker. You can see the foreground hex value, that's that green color. I had previously also assessed the background color, which is that white that's triple F, triple F. And we're really interested in the WCAG 2A standard, which we did pass. WCAG does have a 3A standard, and I mean, that is certainly something to strive for, but the 2A is definitely acceptable. So I call this a pass. Next slide. And once again, I know I keep stressing the checklist, but it is really the reason that I even thought to check for the links that were in the page that I just showed you. Like I said, before I used the checklist, it never occurred to me that they weren't underlined. Next slide. So as with any project, I did run into a few challenges. I think I've already kind of touched on these. The first two are actually pretty similar challenges. When Angela first asked me to check some of the PDFs for accessibility, my first thought was, well, I don't have Acrobat Pro. And that's really the way I think Acrobat Pro kind of has a built-in accessibility checker, and I don't have that, and I don't have access to it. So I kind of froze and thought, I'm not sure that I could assess this. And I felt the same thing in WordPress when I was unable to find the built-in checker like they have in Word and PowerPoint. So it was then that I kind of reached out and discovered that there are external sources you can use, such as the ones that I've been showing you, the color analyzers, the checklist for reminding me which elements I should look at. I certainly was not able to check every single thing because I did not have access to Acrobat Pro, but I was able to analyze more than I initially thought I could. And then again, I already mentioned that I had a little bit of a hard time determining decorative versus informative images. And I think that's because sometimes that really just comes down to a judgment call. It can be pretty subjective. Next slide. So in conclusion, accessibility matters. I hope I've convinced you of that. I think this is a friendly crowd, so I'm guessing that everybody here already agrees with that. Again, I'll just stress it one last time, definitely use an accessibility checklist. Use those external accessibility tools, and certainly if a program has a built-in accessibility checker, use it. So hopefully Bill is easily accessing the AgriSafe web pages and finding the information that he needs. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And then as I answer your questions, Bailey, if you would like to just click through the next couple of slides, it just shows it shows links to the resources, but Bailey also included that in the chat box, and then it's got references on the last slide. So I'll take questions. Oh, thank you, Katie. Thanks, Natalie. Appreciate it.
Hi, Beth Lee.
Hi.
I really enjoyed your presentation, and that is a new area for us. We've been interested in working in this space, so I really appreciate how you kind of broke down how you prioritize this work. So
Thank
my
you, Nisha.
question would be around just that, like how with we have such a robust website, what
Yes.
kind of guidance would you give in terms of identifying priorities for creating more accessibility across the website?
I think that is an excellent question, because one of the things I haven't touched on, but you've brought it up, is that clicking. So I started off, and I can't remember why I started with the wildfire health topic. It may be because there were the fires that were burning in Texas. I started off with that PDF, and then I thought, I'm just going to follow the links on that PDF and see where they lead and see if I can improve the accessibility of those pages. And you can imagine it really led me down a rabbit hole because AgriSafe has a lot of fantastic information, but emphasis on a lot. So it is a huge project. And I guess my answer to that is you either just need to kind of pick a way to organize the website site and start systematically going through it. Or I know that Angela was looking into, there are some companies who will do an accessibility evaluation, and I assume they will also fix accessibility issues that they find. I don't know the cost of those, that it may be exorbitant. I'm assuming if a company had something like that done, so if AgriSafe had that done, then maybe it would be easier to maintain that and to make sure that any future articles have those accessibility pieces in place. Does that help?
It does. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback and great work.
Sure. Thank you. I
And
know
Beth, we have,
yes.
oh, so sorry. I just want to say you have some great praise in the chat. Wanted to make sure that you saw that. And then also,
thank you.
Natalie asking if your internship would have been improved by having access to Acrobat Pro.
Well, for the PDFs, I think it would have been. I've never used it. I just know that that is how to check PDF accessibility. So I think, yes, for analyzing the PDFs that are on the website, I think that would have been really helpful. I'm looking in the chat to see if there's anything else. I don't see anything else. Bailey, do you?
I don't. And I just want to remind everybody that if you think of a question, you feel free to put it in the question session at the end after our second intern gives her presentation. We will have time to have kind of like summative questions at the end. So thank you so much, Beth, for this great presentation. I think a lot of people learned something new, which is always wonderful. So
Good.
Thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And now I want to introduce everyone to Nikitha Marapaka. Nikitha is currently pursuing studies in information science at the University of North Texas with a background in pharmacy. Engaged as an intern at NNLM Region 3, specializing in data instruction, her ongoing research centers on enhancing cybersecurity through zero trust, a multi-domain perspective. With a focused vision of becoming a chief medical information officer, Nikitha is committed to seamlessly integrating healthcare and technology. And with that, I will turn everything over to her.
Thanks, Bailey. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Nikitha Marapaka, and over the next few minutes, I'll be sharing my journey as a data instruction intern at the NNLM Region 3. So this journey has been both a professional and also a personal transformation for me, blending my background in pharmacy with my aspirations in health informatics. Next, please. So let me tell you a bit about myself. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in pharmacy, and I'm currently advancing my education with a master's degree in health informatics at the University of North Texas. So my ultimate goal is to serve as a chief medical information officer, as Bailey said, where I hope to influence healthcare practices through technology. And on a lighter note, I have a really keen interest in dogs, and I can literally identify over 50 different dog breeds. And this passion for learning and identifying extends into my professional life as well, where I enjoy dissecting complex problems. Next, please. So none of this would have been possible without a few key individuals throughout my journey. And I extend my deepest gratitude to my mentor, Katie, who has been my guide and support throughout this journey. And Dr. Anna Cleveland, my academic advisor, has been really instrumental in shaping my academic pursuits. And Eberly Sterling, engagement strategist, really has been supportive. And whenever we get on call, she literally starts off with this positive energy all the way. And the fact that she gets happy when we interns learn new things and tell her what we've learned and how far we've come is really appreciating. Thank you, Bailey. And lastly, thanks to everyone at NNLM Region 3 for giving me this platform in order to learn and gain real world experience. Next slide. So the aim of today's presentation is multifaceted, and I will be providing an overview of my journey at the NNLM and then delve into my discovery and utilization of the NLM Scrubber, which is a pivotal tool for data privacy, and then share the valuable lessons that I've learned through my challenges and also my triumphs. And I'll also touch on the support systems that have been critical to my internship experience. Next, please. So let's begin with how I entered NNLM Region 3. So transitioning from pharmacy to health informatics presented a steep learning curve for me, but it was also a strategic move, I believe, in order to bridge my past experience with my future aspirations. So this internship was the perfect opportunity to apply my theoretical knowledge in a practical setting, I believe, providing a real-world interface between healthcare and also data technology. Next, please. So one of my initial tasks was to learn about the NLM Scrubber. So shortly after I joined, Katie has demonstrated how exactly the tool works on a system that is compatible with it. As my Mac faced compatibility issues, I couldn't really do it on myself. And this demonstration by Katie provided me with a foundational understanding of its role and also its functionality. And furthering my knowledge, I explored the official website of the NLM Scrubber, which really offered extensive information and also deepened my understanding of the tool. Next, please. So the NLM Scrubber is designed to remove any personally identifiable information from the text data. So in an era where data breaches are really common, ensuring privacy and compliance with the health data protection regulations is more critical than ever. So this tool is really crucial in health libraries to protect patient confidentiality while also maintaining the utility of data for research purpose. Next, please. So why is NLM Scrubber so essential? It's because it's automated detection and redaction of the personal information at its topest features. And it also has a user-friendly interface that encourages adoption even among those who are not really tech savvy. And additionally, it's customizable, which makes it a versatile tool for various privacy needs and health data management. Next, please. So let's delve deeper into the operational mechanics of the NLM Scrubber. The process begins with the tool scanning clinical text, such as it can be medical records or research notes, which looks for any personal identifiable information or PII. So PII can include names, addresses, social security numbers, and other data that can directly or indirectly identify any individual. So once this data is identified, the NLM Scrubber employs a sophisticated algorithm in order to replace this information with generic placeholders. For example, names are replaced with person, dates with date, and addresses with addresses. So this method really ensures that the privacy of the individuals is maintained while the integrity and also the usefulness of the text for clinical research purposes are preserved. So the ultimate goal is to produce a document that is both secure and also functional, enabling healthcare professionals and researchers to use this data without compromising the patient's confidentiality. Next, please. So in order to illustrate the effectiveness of the NLM Scrubber, I'll give you a specific example. So imagine a clinical note that reads, Sarah Johnson presented to clinic on April 20th at 456 Elm Street. So she reported symptoms of frequent headaches and dizziness. So after processing this particular note with the NLM Scrubber, the note is transformed to personal name presented to the clinic on date at address, and personal name reported symptoms of frequent headaches and dizziness. So this transformation literally highlights how the tool anonymizes the data, making it impossible to trace back to the individual. Yet, still, it provides a crucial medical information that can be invaluable for research and statistical analysis. So such examples demonstrate the practical application and effectiveness of the NLM Scrubber in real-world scenarios. Next, please. So in my project, I proactively integrated the NLM Scrubber as a key element, applying it to de-identify simulated patient data during our pilot study. So this initiative was not just a clinical challenge, but also a practical demonstration of the tool's effectiveness in real-time operations. So by using simulated data, I was able to meticulously adjust the tool settings to optimize privacy measures, tailoring them to our specific needs as well. Additionally, we presented a webinar for the NNLM staff where we also highlighted the importance of data privacy, and we also demonstrated the effective use of the NLM Scrubber. So this webinar, it was not only just for the purpose to improve our internal processes, but also to help and cultivate a culture of privacy awareness and compliance within different organizations. And recently, we've got a feedback saying that the beneficial aspects were to know that the Scrubber exists and knowing how to access it, and also knowing what training exists for it. And few people also appreciated all the technical aspects, the background knowledge, and the pace. So also few were confused as we started with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also natural language processing. So we're going to mention why we have started with it next in the next webinar clearly. Next, please. So the benefits of using the NLM Scrubber are really extensive. Firstly, it significantly enhances privacy and compliance with health data protection laws, which is paramount in today's digital age. So the tool is freely available, and which allows different institutions of all the sizes to implement it without any financial burden. And its ease of integration into existing systems means that it can be quickly adopted and put to use without extensive downtime or learning curve. And additionally, its speed and security features are really superior compared to many other de-identification tools that are in the market now. And also by automating the redaction process, the NLM Scrubber reduces human error, and it also ensures a higher standard or of the privacy protection. Next, please. So, however, it's important to acknowledge the limitations of the NLM Scrubber as well. So this tool requires local installation, which can be a barrier for organizations with strict IT policies or limited technical staff. So it requires a basic understanding of Unix shell commands for the setup and operation, which may necessitate additional training for some of the users. And furthermore, the NLM Scrubber is limited to processing only the text files and does not really support other formats such as images or be it CSV or Excel files, which can be a significant limitations and when dealing with diverse data types. So lastly, the tool needs manual verification in order to ensure complete de-identification, which can be time consuming, I believe. And this requirement underscores the importance of having knowledgeable personnel who can perform these checks to maintain the integrity of the de-identification process. Next, please. So navigating through my internship, I faced several significant challenges that tested and ultimately enhanced my professional capabilities. So the steep learning curve of mastering the NLM Scrubber was one of my initial hurdles. This tool required understanding complex functionalities that were really unfamiliar to me. They've pushed me rapidly to upscale my technical proficiency. And I also grapple with compatibility issues, particularly with installing and running the NLM Scrubber on my system. So this challenge taught me the importance of flexibility and problem solving in technology settings. Also, another obstacle I'd say was learning about the Unix shell commands for the NLM Scrubber setup. This was completely a new skill for me, and I had to learn from the scratch, proving to be both challenging and also rewarding for me. And ensuring strict adherence to data privacy laws while handling sensitive information was critically important yet challenging. And it required meticulous attention to every single detail and a deep understanding of the regulatory standards. So each challenge brought it a lesson in resilience and continuous learning. So overcoming these obstacles not only boosted my technical and analytical skills, but also they really boosted my confidence in handling such complex situations. Next, please. So during my internship, there were several key achievements. A significant highlight was successfully presenting the NLM Scrubber during our webinar, where we thoroughly demonstrated its application in our pilot project. So this not only enhanced our organization's data privacy practices, but also ensured that every participant that was present there fully grasped the practical value and also detailed the workings of the tool. And I developed expertise in data privacy tools, notably the NLM Scrubber, which not only boosted my professional growth, but also allowed me to lead training session for the NLM staff. So leading to the workshop on the NLM Scrubber helped spread critical knowledge throughout the NNLM and reinforcing a culture of teamwork and continuous improvement. So these successes have bolstered my confidence and professional identity in health informatics, earning recognition from both peers and also the mentors. Next, please. So I was really fortunate, I'd say, to have robust support systems during my internship. The guidance from Katie transformed my challenges into learning opportunities. And also, while working along with Christine, fostered a supportive and collaborative environment. So this support was really crucial in helping me navigate my internship successfully. Thank you both. Thank you so much. Next, please. So in conclusions, tools like NLM Scrubber are really indispensable in the field of health informatics. So looking ahead, I'm really eager to explore ways to expand reach and functionality of such tools. And I'm committed to continuing advocacy for the data privacy within NNLM network and beyond. So ensuring that we stay at the forefront of technology and patient privacy. Next, please. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions or wish to discuss any of the topics further, please feel free to reach out, and you can contact me through LinkedIn or by email. And I look forward to engaging with you and sharing ideas. Next, please. So I really appreciate all of your time and attention today, and I'm open to any questions you may have about my presentation or my experiences.
If there are no questions, like Nikitha said, please feel free to contact her directly. I'm going to go back one slide so you can see her contact information if you wanted to take that down. Like I said in the chat, this really was a great pilot that they put together, and I look forward to seeing where this webinar goes in the future. So thank you so much, Nikitha. And I just want to pause for just a moment to see if there are any more questions about the intern specific projects, about the internship at large. I will just pause and be quiet for just about 15 seconds. Okay, wonderful. Well, it's official. Beth and Nikitha, you did it. Congratulations. I wish we were meeting in person so that you could hear the congratulations and the applause that you definitely deserve and that I know the folks in this room would be giving you. Thank you both so much. for sharing your talents with us with NNLM Region 3 and with AgriSafe over the course of this semester. It's really been wonderful working with both of you. And although internship activities are coming to an end, we really look forward to collaborating with you on future projects as you complete your degree programs and then as you enter the field of medical librarianship. So I hope that you're able to take a moment, take a deep breath, and celebrate all of your accomplishments. And please look at the chat at these wonderful congratulations from the folks in the room. You really do deserve it. Before we depart, I do want to share with you just a little bit more about the student engagement opportunities that we currently have. Right now, as we speak, the Student Development Award applications are open. Those are open until May 3rd. I always forget the date that they close. The application for that award is open until May 3rd. And the Student Development Award funds student attendance and presentation at least one regional conference. And that's in person. This year, it's the SCC MLA conference here in Dallas. So, and along with that is like networking and professional development with Region 3 staff. So it's a really cool opportunity for students who live or work in NNLM Region 3. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me. And then of course, also next spring, we will have internships open again. At least 2 are available each spring. And those are also available to library and information science students that live and or go to school in one of the 7 states in Region 3. So again, that's Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. Barring any additional comments or questions, I just want to thank all of you very much for being here. Thank you for your time in watching these students present and for supporting them as they wrap up this internship experience. So we appreciate you all very much and hope you have a great day.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.